Hey everybody, welcome back to OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. I am Joe Brown, and I'm usually joined by Sierra Dawn, but she is currently under the weather, so Joe Ugarte is cosplaying as Sierra today from her setup. How are we doing, Joe?
Can't complain here, got the Play Pokemon shirt on, we're fitting in the vibe, we're ready to talk about some Pokemon. It'll be great.
Yes, and Joe is fighting through the cats, so we appreciate you for all your efforts making it onto the pod today, despite the cats making you a little nasally, Joe.
Yeah, it's all good. What are you gonna do? They're cute, so I can get over it.
Exactly. All right, and we are joined by two other guests, first timers on the pods, Thaison Hughes and Giovanni Cischke. Friends, we'll start with Gio. How you doing? Congrats on Portland. How you doing, man?
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm excited about it. The season's been pretty fun for me, so I'm glad that I get to do some more like media side things as well. After NPA, that was like the last time I did something like media oriented, I believe. I guess I had one Tough Takes episode kind of recently, but like not really. But yeah, like it's been a while, and so it's good to be back in front of a camera again.
There you go. Hey, you're on the rise. You're superstar on the rise. So get ready to do more and more interviews here. And Thaison, my friend, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good as well as I can, Joe. I mean, the weather is amazing outside, and I haven't been to nearly as many events as Gio and Joe, but I'll be coming back at NAIC, and I'm super excited to get to play Pokemon again with all my friends and see everybody, and of course, be on the podcast and chat it up about, Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start. You brought up NAIC. I think that's a great point to start because we are going to have, that is next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, but Sierra is going to be on the preview show, the NAIC preview stream this Friday. So that's tomorrow as of uploading this on Thursday. So anybody who is excited about NAIC, the preview show, she has put a lot of effort into the VG segment. It's going to have VGC, TCG, Pokemon Unite, and Pokemon Go. Get you all prepared for NAIC. Tune in. I believe that is at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 Pacific on Friday on Pokemon's Twitch channel. So should be a fun time. I left a question. They always say put it like on Twitter, put a question in the bottom, and I put which gym leader would cook the best gumbo because we're down in New Orleans. So hopefully they choose my question. I think it's a fun one. But
valid question. I mean, hey, it's on theme, right? Like,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but if you're gonna ask the question, who would even be the best trainer to make the best gumbo?
So this is what I got into a discussion with a friend because he was like, it's clearly Brock. And I'm like, it's clearly not, because Brock being a cook is an anime only thing, first of all. He's not cooking in Pewter City in Gen 1, right? So we don't actually know if he'd be a good cook or not. And how would you not choose a fire type gym leader? Because you need to have a spicy gumbo. So I'm thinking Flannery. I'm thinking the Afro dude from Gen 4, the Elite Four. I forget his name.
Yeah. Who's the Gen 5 leader? Chili, I think it is, right?
Yeah. And then Kiawe out of Sun and Moon, maybe he could have some of this Marowak. The hiker guy dancing in the background as he's cooking gumbo. I don't know. I think it's a good question.
I think there's literally a good option too.
Yeah, like there's literally
the water gym leader from Scarlet Violet.
Oh my god.
He's a chef. He's a chef.
Sierra, don't listen to the podcast. Don't steal Gio's answer, because that's a great answer. Honestly, he is a chef.
I also think the guy, I think his name is Crispin from the Blueberry Academy, is literally a chef.
I'm sure he could with the quiz.
I'm sure he can cook up something.
Yeah, exactly. Let's cook up our conversation for NAIC here. You like that segue, Joe? That's what we like to do here. So
pretty smooth, Can't complain.
Thank you. So we're all going to be going to New Orleans next weekend. It's my first time ever going to New Orleans. I wasn't there last year, so I'm very excited. It's been for like a decade. People have asked me where should a Pokemon event be, and I've said New Orleans all the time. So I'm very excited to actually visit. You guys are also on your way now. Obviously, this is the culmination. This is the end of the season. We'll start with you, Thaison. Is it more excited? Are you more excited to like play and be a part of this massive event? Are you more excited to go party on Bourbon Street with the friends after maybe 2-2 drop on Friday or something?
God, Joe.
Not you, Thaison.
We're getting brutal here.
No, I'm just saying. Like, what's the main purpose out of NAIC next weekend for you?
No, that for that second part that you had mentioned about going 2-2, Joe, you laughed, but me, you, and Sepra last NAIC were like 3-3 drop, and we spent that event, enjoying New Orleans and what it has to offer. But this time, I haven't really got to play this much this season, so I'm definitely going into NAIC with more of a competitive mindset, actually putting in my hours, playing the game, and I'm there. I want to win. I want to do well. So.
It's the redemption tour.
Yeah, the redemption tour, sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to cook Thaison. I promise. I was.
Yeah, I mean, look,
different interests.
Look, we did get knocked out early. Although for me, I was like, I lost. Like, I'm just gonna get Raising Cane's to go to casino, and then I lost like more money at the casino, so I just double lost that day instead of like making it better.
Oh man, that's worse.
Double lost.
I will say the outside of their casino actually looks very, very nice.
Yeah,
so it's why we were feeling.
Yeah.
I'm excited for everything. Speaking of Raising Cane's, I sent Joe a Raising Cane's TikTok. He never responded. Fake friend.
Oh no, I gotta look.
Fake friend shit.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna say. Gio, what about you? Because obviously, I don't know where your standing is right now. I mean, obviously, you have a whole bunch of top cuts this season. So, like, are you safe for top 75? Do you need a top
He's number 7 right now?
Or oh wait, you're 7. Okay, cool.
On leaderboard,
I was just saying, you have a
7.
million top cuts, so like you should be good.
Yeah. I'm using NAIC somewhat as like a buffer for the travel award.
Okay.
Because I should be nearly, like, fingers crossed, but I should be nearly locked for the World's Travel Award because that's top 12, and I do have a pretty sizable lead on 12th place by, I think, roughly 200 points. So the players that are in that like 12 to 16 range would all have to have pretty substantial performances, and I would also have to miss points. Hoping that doesn't happen, of course, but that feels good. And then for the Latin America Internationals Travel Award, that ends with North American Internationals. That's also another reason, because I've played pretty much every event in this like stipend/travel award period. So it makes sense for me. Also, being from the South, it's literally the closest event to me. Debatably, like, I think it's slightly further away than San Antonio for me, but it's like comparable.
Cool.
And so like if I'm gonna do Portland, I might as well do New Orleans.
I didn't even know that New Orleans was the Eastern time zone. Like,
Yeah,
I thought they were behind. I thought they were so far in that maybe I'm just dumb. But
I think it's like right on the border
The
of
cusp,
it. That's why, right? Yeah.
that's why I always like the fun fact that, and Sierra didn't understand this because she's not an American.
Is it not central?
That's see,
No,
Gio?
it is.
Oh,
it's
It's not central.
It
Yeah.
is.
No,
It is central.
it's not.
It
It is
is.
Eastern.
No, it's central. I promise you.
Here, let's look it up.
We gotta look it up.
promise you
It's
it's central.
We gotta
I'm
look it up.
pretty
guys.
sure it's Eastern.
I'm pretty sure it's Eastern.
I'll
no,
be disowned.
Gio's right. It
Yeah,
is
I was
Central
like,
Time Zone.
yeah.
It's Central Time Zone.
But then
So-
I'm not crazy because I thought it was
all of
Central,
you,
and
all of
someone
you
told
get,
me it's
you get your sleep
PSC.
back. Yeah. all
Yeah,
of you
somebody
get your
told me
sleep
it was
back.
Eastern.
Wait, so are we
So-
gaining or losing an hour for Eastern people?
You get one more hour of sleep.
You gain an hour going back. Yeah.
That's an hour of prep.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna be prepping.
You're in the
that hour.
future. You're in the future.
Exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're gonna be prepping from the blackjack table. For
Yeah,
the next
yeah.
hour. That's what me and Joe are gonna. Okay, now we confirm it is now behind because somebody told me it was Eastern. I'm like, there's no way. And they're like, yeah, you were wrong your whole life. I'm like, oh wow. So I'm happy to be
Turns out they were wrong their whole life.
Turns out, exactly. But no, I didn't get to finish point. Sierra didn't understand because she's Canadian. I said that Detroit is further east than Atlanta is, and it just boggles my mind every time because you think of Atlanta with Georgia on literally on the East Coast, but it's so far in such a wide state that. Anyway, that's my fun fact for the day. Let's talk about Pokemon. Let's talk about NAIC. Obviously, there is a lot of pressure since this is the brand new top 75 system. But like, I want to get your guys' thoughts on it because we all saw, oh man, I better not finish 76th. Oh man, what if I beat my friend in round 3 and then it cost him his invite because he finished 76? It's like, but isn't it like 95 or something, right? Because there's the 9 regional champions, there's the top 4 of all the other ICs as well, right? So what is it going into this weekend or next weekend, excuse me, like what is the actual goal that somebody on the cusp needs to try to reach? Is it 89th? Is it 78th? Like what is it?
I can
So
actually maybe pull this up for you, Joe, on the side while you guys
my
are talking about it.
understanding is that since there are currently 83 spots, like in total, due to the auto invites that are within the top 75, there can be at most 87 North American representatives because they would all have to make top 4 of NAIC to
Okay.
cover those 4 spots. They also get the auto invite and also like be like, I guess if they're within, then the people below them will get in.
And we're at 83
yeah.
because Wolf took
Yes.
both a regional and an IC
UIC,
auto
yes.
qualification. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the current situation. It's looking like the point threshold is going to be somewhere in the low to mid 900s, I'd imagine.
Wow.
Maybe mid 900s. I wouldn't imagine that it gets higher than 975. I'd imagine that's for sure clear. That's just my guess, though. But
okay. And then what are our thoughts? I think it's interesting with, two of you guys, like, Gio's gone to every event and then Thaison has only been to some of the events. You guys have different perspectives on what it takes to qualify for Worlds. We see the standings there. No big deal. My guy, Joe Ugarte, number 1 in the rankings. Number one in my heart, baby.
All good.
Love to see it. But, for Gio and Thaison, either one of you can start on this one. What are your thoughts on how tough it is to qualify for Worlds?
I mean, I think I could speak from the perspective of someone who doesn't have much on the line. Obviously, if I were to qualify for Worlds, I would need like a top 4 at NAIC. So I think as a player going into NAIC with that goal in mind, you are kind of relaxed in the sense where you don't have there's not your run isn't on the line, right? You make it or you don't. You're not stressing over like a top 32 or anything like that. So you can kind of in terms of like the actual playing aspect, you can put a lot more on the line with your team. You could get kind of creative with it maybe, or you can be a little bit more experimental. You have room to really try, whereas someone in Gio's position maybe just locks something they've been comfortable with or they've been playing the entire season and they just go for a guaranteed spot, whether that's, the top 32 or whatnot.
I mean, actually, funny enough, it's funny you bring that up because I actually feel like it's kind of like a bell curve almost, where like, so at the lower end of like, oh, I just need to do well to like, I need to get top 4 to like get my invite, right? Like you're obviously willing to take risks because at that point it's like I have nothing to lose, right? And then when you're in the middle area where you're like, when you're in the middle area when you're like on the cusp of like qualifying, right? Maybe you're more incentivized to play it safe because you just need like any points. And I feel like in my position where I am, right? Like number one, it's like, well, I'm not worried about qualifying at all. I'm locked. So like I'd rather take a risk to try and win the whole tournament, right? Than like just play it safe just to get points. Cause like what is extra points gonna do me? Like it's not doing anything for me, right? So like I think it kind of goes in that way where like once you're at the upper half too of like the standings as well, it's like, well, I'm already locked. So like I'd rather just take a risk and like go for the win, right? So yeah. I think that's like
especially
kind
I
of
think in those bottom slots closer to the bottom 75 and whatnot.
Scroll down to like 80 to 90 or something.
Like these are the players I think would be the players I would want to keep my eyes on in terms of how they do at NAIC, right? Because that's going to make or break where people end up and who ends up qualifying for Worlds.
What do you think, Gio?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think my perspective on like the entire season at least was a bit different because I did not play an official tournament until the second cycle of Reg G came around. I did not play. I only played locals in Regulation H, so it was a bit different for me. But I was fortunately able to attend like pretty much every major event since then. My plan wasn't to do that. I was only supposed to do like San Antonio and then New Orleans was the plan. But Isabel Lee kind of convinced me last second to do Seattle, like go through Seattle to get to Vancouver, and then things just took off from there. But for specifically NAIC, I think it's like I think that everyone's going to be aiming to win the tournament regardless of where they're at. I know players that are in this area of the championship point leaderboard that are still taking risks on what they're doing and going all out. For them, it is their world championship until they make the world championships is kind of how I like to look at it. And to be honest, I think that any player in this area can outdo the next. So it'll be really interesting to see how it shakes up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for sure. We have on our screen, for our audio listeners, we have like the general rankings of where everyone is. 83 invites right now, ranks 84 through 104. Who would be your sleeper pick? Which of those 20 names do you think not only could crack into the top 83 to get the world's invite, but like has the best chance to actually win NAIC?
It's
Besides
funny you
yourselves,
say that.
obviously.
It's funny you say that because there are actually a lot of like good names from this
Yeah.
range, right? Like Brady
Yeah.
Smith, like Jody Azzarelli, like even I think
Nick Donnelly too.
yeah, like Nick Donnelly, right? Like I mean Joey Woodring got second, right? And like he's
Yeah.
right on the cusp as well. He's at 91.
That's right.
And a bunch of other names. Like I recognize a lot of the people from like the 85 to like 104 range that we're looking at right now. Like even if you go a little bit more down, like I noticed a few more, right? Like I definitely think it's going to be a situation where, and this is like both the exciting part and maybe like the scary part of NAIC. Like, can you imagine? So like you go like 6-3 at NAIC, right? And like your invite is completely determined by whether the other guy at like 5-3 like wins his match or not
Yeah.
to like get your invite or not, right? So like I've experienced this on like the higher end in terms of like the travel awards in 2023, where basically it came down to like how did NAIC how did NAIC go, right? And like it was like I remember like me and Alberto went down to like 3-2 really early, and all of the other players were like smelling blood in the water, like, oh, these guys are out, like we're about to be fine. And then I was able to like rally back and get like top 8, and so I managed to like get to the top of the leaderboards in that season. That was like a really cool memory, but like I'm sure it's like even more stressful when it's like Worlds invite on the line, you know what I mean? Because at least with Worlds TA, like that sucks, and like you'd rather like play in day 2 at the time, right? But like you can still play Worlds, right? This one is like pretty stressful because like, oh, if this guy wins, this guy loses, like like I can make Worlds, I cannot. But you usually want to play to not put yourself in that situation, anyways, right? So
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting as well because this is the first time that, we've really seen this point system play out. I don't think it's going to change the NAIC dynamic. Like, we're not going to see a crowd of people at the tables, like, praying this one person loses so they make their Worlds invite. But I definitely think on social medias and things like that, we'll definitely see that dynamic play out a little bit more, which will be, cool. You'll get a lot more stories out of it, which I think I'm excited for.
Yeah, I heard that there's going to be one person doing a community project where it's like live standings as NAIC is playing out.
Oh,
And so I've heard that. I've heard that.
That is crazy.
I hope it's real, where you can like live see the leaderboards as the tournament's playing out. I think that'll be really cool.
that would stress me out, man.
That would be so cool to watch, though.
I think Gio just volunteered for that. I think he's going to do it.
Listen, I'm not professional enough to do that, but there are people out there in this community that are more than capable of making that happen. And I heard discussions about someone volunteering to do that. So I hope that's a thing, and I hope that we can all like. I mean, I'm sure it won't be like a Twitch stream or whatever. I'm sure it'll be just like a spreadsheet of like it live changing as the tournament goes on, like coded to be that way. But for players to watch out for in that range, I would personally say Benjamin Harlan. I think that he's gone underappreciated recently. He's from SoCal. I played him round 1 of Milwaukee, and it was a pretty solid set. And then he cut Portland right after. And he's been using Murat on Keller's Ice at both tournaments. And I think that he is really focusing in on that archetype. And I think that if he performs similar to what he did in either of those 2 tournaments, that he'll be just fine. So I would say that he just needs to play at the level that he has been playing at, and he'll make it.
Yeah, I would definitely expect some of these names that are out of the top 83 right now to crack in by the end of NASC, which obviously is an unfortunate feeling for people that are currently like 80th or whatever, and they end up, if they fall, it's just how the cookie crumbles. Though I feel like people like to complain. I don't know your guys' thoughts on what your initial thoughts were last year when they announced this format. Oh, it's not fair, like, because you keep scrolling and you're like, man, I know that guy, I know that player, that's a good player, and they're in 111th. Like, oh my goodness, there's a lot, but that's just because the player base is so much stronger these days. Like, there's a lot more better players right now, and even though a lot of people with that we know that are talented at the game like are not going to qualify for Worlds, that doesn't mean that they're not a good player that has the ability to perform well on a big stage or at a regional. And I think at this point, like I like the system personally way more than last year's. I've talked ad nauseum about the system we used to have, and you can't really say anyone didn't earn it at this point. Like the argument is it's too hard to qualify, right? Like so if somebody does crack the top 83, you're not going to say that they didn't earn top 83.
Yeah.
I mean, I would always say like the way I like this system better because, and like this isn't even like obviously too like I have a different perspective because I'm competing at a, you know what I mean, like I know I'm qualifying for Worlds as long as I'm playing well most of the time, right? Like, but I think that Worlds is like in any other game is always like where you're showing like the best of the best players, right? And as the game gets bigger, you have to take steps to actually like filter it down, so it's not just like, you know, 200 players from each region qualifying off of like could you imagine if we had like a 700 championship point bar? I mean, what would that be down to already? Like we'd already have 148 people qualified
Right.
now.
Wow.
Pre
And then
NAIC,
pre NAIC. So
Yeah.
you'd have like 200 from US, probably like another 200 from Europe, right? Like it would just be like a really forgiving system. And I feel like for Worlds, like I think it does it more justice when it's like a bit harder to qualify, to be honest, right? Like I think that like in any game, right, the World Championships are supposed to represent like the like real prestige of the game, like the best players playing against the other really good players, right, in qualifying. And I think like they've taken steps to really try and like make it as competitive as possible, right? Like removing the day two advantage from like top players, right? Like I think that then there's no like, oh, they got a day two advantage, like that gives like an unfair advantage in Worlds, right? Like everyone starts at the same playing field. And then on top of that, too, they removed the round bye, I think, that they had last year as well, right? So
Yeah.
there's no round bye anymore. So everyone starts on the same footing. But I think if you're going to do those steps to like do that, then you have to take steps to also make day one more exclusive. So then it's like a, you know, more prestigious tournament from that day one, I think, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would agree as well. Like I think a lot of the stress that came from people was, or lack of stress actually, is that they could kind of guarantee they get Worlds. But I actually like that there's like kind of like a fire under the people's feet. I think it creates a more competitive atmosphere, and it only, you know, makes better players. We've seen so many new regional champions this season, and I think a large part of that, to be honest, is our player base is growing and the size for people who can qualify to Worlds is smaller. It incentivizes people to want to be better, to want to get better at the game. And I think as the game gets bigger and we keep breaking milestones for the largest regional and the largest internets, it only makes sense to keep Worlds, like Joe said, like a prestigious event, to make sure it keeps that value to it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I think about some of the other like esports and competitive games I watch, and you know, sometimes, oh, you guys always compare stuff to Pokemon. It's not the same thing. I know, but you compare it to see how other things work well, right? Like the One Piece, I played the One Piece trading card game. Their world championship was 16 players, and then I think this year expanded to 32 because 16 was too low, right? So okay, cool. The 32 best players in the world, like that makes sense. The Street Fighter, I'm a big fighting game fan. Their Capcom Cup, which is essentially their worlds every year, is 31 players qualify, and then they have an LCQ for the 30-second slot.
Yeah,
it's not 600 people at the Capcom Cup. You know what I mean? Like it's the best players in the world are there, and oftentimes like. So I think this is a very good middle ground from what we used to have back in the day. When it was just like the top 40 and everybody was crying every time they got crit or missed a rock slide or whatever, because it truly was life and death out of a top 40 system. I think it's a good middle ground, and we'll see how they improve on it next season. Maybe changing different. You know, I know some people want different.
It definitely seems like
DFLs.
they're willing to experiment and like improve on things too. Because like, for example, right, like they upped it to top 75, but also like you win an event, right? Like you're not like not going to be in Worlds because like you could, because then I'm sure like if that wasn't the case, people would be like, well, I want a regional, but like I'm not allowed to play in Worlds. Like, you know what I mean? So like they definitely like thought a bit ahead more with the system, I think. And also too, like top 4 of internationals, like getting into Worlds, I think is like a really good benefit as well. Because you know, I mean, it rewards you for like doing well at these tournaments for sure. And I think having that extra incentive is good, because then it also allows like, and I think even the foresight to take them out of the standings once they hit those qualifications, if it's not through points, right, is also really good, because then it gives more players, you know, the chance to qualify. I feel like it's a fairly generous system, you know what I mean, even though it's a hard like cutoff.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's a good middle ground, because then if they didn't count, then you would have those weird things, right? Someone goes to one event and they are one of the best. They won one of the 9 premier events in North America, but they're not one of the top 75 people representing North America at Worlds. So let's take a little flashback from, we're talking about the future. We're in the future paradox on NAIC. Let's go past Paradox, a little Roaring Moon Fluttermane, and talk about Portland with Geo's run. Let's give you some shine, my friend. Congratulations on your top cut performance in Portland. Just give us a overall about, your team construction, how the weekend went. Like, why did you perform so well in Portland?
Well, first of all, thank you. This tournament was pretty stressful for me for a number of reasons. So first off, I played a cup on the Tuesday before Portland, and when I got home, my dad had convinced me to sign up for Portland, so I did so on Wednesday at 3 a.m. because I was in contention for like the travel awards, and I was already, I believe, I mean, there's no actual standings of it, no official standings, because they don't have that leaderboard. And I don't think anyone's been able to really track it consistently because of the overlap with BFLs between the stipend periods. So it's pretty difficult to track. I hope someone has that before NAIC so I can at least see it, because I believe I'm still in 4th, because it's like Joe, Carson, and Riley, not particularly in that order, but those 3, and then it's me, and then there's a number of other people that are on my tail. So it would be nice to see that, but I just don't have access to that at the moment. So I felt like I had to do Portland just to like stay in that spot. And I didn't really know what I wanted to play. I was messing around with a lot of things between Wednesday and Thursday, just trying to find something new, because I had brought this team with Terra Fairy Ursaluna to Milwaukee, and that was actually one of the best parts of the team was the Terra Fairy, but Terra Ghost just makes more sense as the metagame developed. And so I was trying to resist using this team for the longest time. I spent multiple hours in the airport actually waiting for Aaron Brock's flight to get in, because he was the first friend of mine that would get in. A lot of my other friends or like my roommates for the weekend got in pretty late into Portland. So he and I took the train into downtown and got our wristbands and whatnot. And I still had no idea what I wanted to play. Until like 10 p.m., I kind of decided there's nothing I'm going to find better than what I'd already played and what I know best. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to go to my Arcanine, change the Terra Fairy to Terra Ghost, and just call it a day. Like, that was the only change I made on Arcanine between Milwaukee and Portland. And I mean, the rest of it was just playing as best as I could.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm looking at the team, and obviously you got Brute Bonnet, Lunala, which I'm very excited about, Ursaluna, Chi, Koraidon, and Fluttermane. This the new Lunadon 2.0, right, with Koraidon instead of a Groudon here. How these restricteds work together so well, because it doesn't, to me at least, and open this up to everyone, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily as synergistic as some of the other duos are, right? Like how they were, like they seem to be like independently really strong. It's kind of like it's like 2 NBA players like on the same team, but because they're both really strong, they make each other better. It's not like one makes the other better. Am I reading that incorrectly, or is there something about why Koraidon and Lunala are so good together?
I think that's a very fair assessment, is that independently they're both really strong Pokemon, and so collectively they're just naturally very strong Pokemon. It doesn't share the same level of synergy that a lot of other restricted pairs do, but Sun, at like setting Sunlight, or like having Drought or Calcum Pulse in this case, enables a lot of other Pokemon, right? And Lunala also has a lot of utility in its kits, and the team is just very generic, bulky offense, but it has a fast mode to it, right? And so you can kind of play like it's a very flexible team. You can bring all 6 Pokemon in a given matchup, like between games in a set. It can adjust between those modes fairly effortlessly, and it has a lot of pretty consistent checks for the metagame, despite some inaccuracies on this team. And so I kind of figured like the same idea for Milwaukee was like, I've used all of these Pokemon at some point in the Scarlet Violet timeline. Well, except for Lunala being in Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, because I played Lunala quite a lot in the 2019 season. And then Fluttermane Chiyu I've been using since European Internationals in 2023 in London. I took those there, and I've used them on almost every team ever since they were legal. And Ursaluna I used at Worlds 2023 as well as Pittsburgh 2023 and even San Antonio 2023. So all three of those tournaments before I went back to just using Fluttermane Chiyu for all of Regulation F. And then after that in Regulation G, I picked up Koraidon. So all of those pieces were very familiar to me. And Brute Bonnet was just naturally the best sixth. And this wasn't really like my build. I just kind of took it from other players using it online and noticed certain adaptations that I can make to the team where I felt like the current versions that people were using didn't get the maximum value that they could have out of it. Like a lot of other people are using Terra Normal Flutterman on this team, but the positions to Terra Normal were not particularly relevant. A lot of people use that because of Calyrex Shadow, but this team has no shortage of checks for Calyrex Shadow.
Right.
So in situations where you would want to Terra Normal, it's usually because you made a mistake or multiple mistakes. And so it was just better off to have the extra damage from Stellar with Beads of Ruin and having another means of offense to the team rather than using a defensive Terra when you already have Focus Sash and you already have enough checks to the thing that was requiring you to use Terra Normal in the first place. Just as the metagame developed, it seemed more natural to do that as well.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Joe. You had something?
Yeah, I was actually gonna say too. I think like another thing that where I think it's interesting because we were talking about like the synergy between the restricteds, right? So like normally like looking at Koraidon and Lunala, you'd be like, okay, so like you know you look back at archetypes like Lunadon in 22, right? Like the main synergy between Lunala and Groudon was that you'd be able to click Trick Room and then your Groudon can spam Blades in Trick Room, right? Whereas like it's not as like I guess intuitive in some cases, like with Koraidon, because it's like, oh, I'm flame charging, I'm boosting my speed, I'm putting off a lot of offense, right? So like how do I use Trick Room with that? I think really like what's interesting about the team is like kind of what you were saying, right? Like there's a lot of flexibility in terms of your approaches, but I also think too like it's very like valid. It's kind of what you were talking about, Joe, even like where like they both are so individually strong, they're really good. And then Gio was talking about like how they both enable like different partners. Like it's very viable to just do something like Fluttermane Koraidon, right? You immediately put on a lot of pressure, get the Icy Wind Flare Blitz, you know, close combat and Moonblast, whatever. You set up a bunch of different pins. And then by the time you force them to exhaust a lot of their resources, that like maybe would have been really good into Ursaluna and Lunala in the back. That's when you're bringing in the Lunala, you're clicking Trick Room, and then, you know, they're kind of screwed versus the Ursaluna, right? So I think that's a really like interesting aspect of the team, and it definitely makes a lot of sense because you also have ways you can either hard commit to either approach either, right? Like you can simply just go with like Koraidon, Flutter, Chiyu, and Lunala, right? And just play really aggressive. Or you can go for something like, Brute Bonnet Lunala with Ursaluna in the back and then maybe a late game Koraidon, right? Like there's a lot of different ways you can approach it, even though the modes don't necessarily mesh together. I'd say probably like the one position you usually wouldn't want to be in is like you're in Trick Room with like Koraidon and Lunala in the field usually, right? Like unless there's like a specific scenario where like maybe you switch to Ursa or something.
I think to me, like, and this is just one of my faults as a player that I've had for over a decade at this point when I look at teams, and I always, shout outs to our good friend Jake Muller, because I always talk with him about this in team building, and I'm like, oh, but I already have a ghost type. Oh, I already have a fire type. Oh, I already have this, right? And so this team is just like my type chart OCD is just all over the place because we got 2 ghost types in Lunala and Fluttermane, essentially 2 fire types with Chiyu and Koraidon, because 92% of the time Koraidon's turned into a fire type, 2 dark types with Chiyu and Brute Bonnet. Like this, like where's all my coverage? Like where's my random rock slide on the team? You know, in my head, I'm like, how do I construct a well-rounded group here when there's so much overlap? But it appears as if like maybe it's this format dependent or just where maybe the game has changed. You don't need to have as wide of options anymore because it's like Koraidon is supporting the rest of these Paradox Pokemon or even Chiyu who are, you know, who's ruinous by setting the sun up. It doesn't matter if you have type overlap.
Yeah, I think like a part of it is just this team where the sun enables so many Pokemon because of photosynthesis. You know, like your Chiyu and your Fluttermane and your Brute Bonnet all are benefiting from the sun, so that kind of outweighs any really type chart, right? Like a overheat in the sun with the Chiyu Beads of Ruin is going to be doing a lot of damage regardless of what they have. We know how much it does even to resisted Pokemon. But then I think another symptom of it is just the game in general. With terrestrialization, you have a lot of the options to get that water type if you need it as a resist defensively, or even if you need to, use something offensive like Gio said with the stellar terrestrialization on the Fluttermane and just boosting up that damage even more. The typing, it's nice to have. You see it like on something like the Tropicos teams where that Pokemon values, considering its damage output is doing neutral damage always. That kind of team values the Fire, Water, Grass core, for example, with the Amoonguss and Rillaboom on like an Urshifu a lot more compared to something like I think like the Sun Spam teams or even something like the Zama, Zenta, Calric Shadow Rider teams where they also want to just kind of spam Body Press and Astral Barrage. The Fire, Water, Grass is nice if you want to play more defensively, but you can also play more offensively with other tools as well.
Yeah, I actually like that you brought that up because I think honestly the biggest answer to that question really is terrestrialization, right? Like every format's mechanics definitely shape how a team looks and like what's good and what's bad. And I think like the reason why we see a lot of these formats being so offensive is because a lot of the defensive like aspects of a team can now be kind of factored in through Terra typing, right? So like, you know, obviously if this were a non-terrestrialization format, right? Maybe something like a Kyogre could be a bit more threatening, or like, you know, an Urshifu could be a bit more threatening, right? But like you have Terra Water and Lunala, so even if you're caught out of, if you're caught out of your weather, right? Rain is active, you can just Terra Water the Lunala, right? Your Brute Bonnet's caught in front of an Urshifu, no problem. I'll just Terra Water and, like Spore it or Heat Bomb or whatever. And I think it's really interesting because now that we've gotten into like year 3 of terrestrialization, basically, right? Like people are very experienced with the mechanic and they definitely know how to like exploit that in, team building. I actually think it's really interesting that got brought up as well because I remember in the team that ended up winning Victory Road, like an online tournament, there was a clip of Michael Derbest basically being like, this team is like horrible. It's so bad. Like, how did this team win? Like, whatever. And like, it's because, there was like a Chiyu and an Instant, right? There was a lot of typing overlap. Some of the roles like overlapped a lot, right? But like, it was some like strong concepts plus terrestrialization that I think enable people to like use those kind of teams in this format for sure.
Yeah. So, Gio, last one for you on Portland before we move on to Bologna and the other events that happened this weekend or this past weekend. What was your toughest matchup where even win or loss, you're like, man, I'm getting cooked right now. Like this is a really crazy team that I cannot handle. And then what was your match you were the most proudest of winning? Because we have all your opponents, here on the screen.
I would probably say that for like best match that I was able to win, I'd say top 32 against Blake Silver. That matchup was a bit problematic because when I had practiced a bit before the tournament, with the limited practice I had, I played against the group of Kerry Duratono, Blake Silver, and Andrew Figueres. Those 3 worked on the team all together, and all 3 of them came up with different conclusions for the Calyrex like 4th move, the filler move on it. the non-glacial lance attack. They each decided on a different move, with it being Leech Seed, Seed Bomb, and High Horsepower. All three of them decided something different, but they all had the same team otherwise, which was pretty interesting. And the matchup was not great for me, I'd say. In the game one, I got effectively 4-0'd, I believe. I don't think I took a KO. I just lost off of turn one. But I was able to kind of figure out the matchup after that, and I was able to make safe enough plays. Of course, I had to play a bit aggressively to get some reads right, but overall, like I played about as safe as I could have, and managed to win the game 2 and game 3 about as safe as I could. I know that game 2, I got a turn 1 wake that pretty much ended the game on the spot. I would have had a chance to still win after that, but it would have been very hard. And so I got lucky in that regard. And the game 3 was pretty clean, I'd like to think, from my end. So that one I'm pretty happy with. As for, I think that probably applies for both conditions of like hardest matchup and like proudest victory. I'd also say that my set against Junsi was a bit challenging, but fortunately for me, Ursaluna does quite well into this team. So if I got it in position, I was able to threaten a lot of damage into everything. And the game 2 just ended when I was able to get Trick Room Up with Ursaluna.
Now they do have a Jumpluff. Do you think Joe was rooting for you, or was he rooting for Jumpluff to win?
Jumpluff, but that's okay. That's okay. I understand. It's not personal. It's not personal.
How does Jumpluff like work now? Because everybody and their mother's got electric terrain out there, so you can't be put to sleep, and then Kyogre's just gonna get rid of the chlorophyll. Like I know Joe hasn't even tried to build Venusaur because Venusaur's not working in this format with all the electric terrain. Like, why was Junxie able to place or perform so well in Portland with this team?
I feel like I could definitely speak to that. So, because I talked to Junji a lot about his team after, because I had Jumpluff. So, when I see Jumpluff, I'm like, I have to know about it.
See,
right?
I do.
Yeah, I like have to know about it, right? So, I talked to Junji after tournament, and I think actually the theory behind it is pretty sound. So, like, if you think about like where you're using Jumpluff, right? Like, majority of the time, like you're bringing Jumpluff in the matchups where you can spam Sleep Powder, right? Or you need Tailwind to like gain a speed advantage. But on Junji's team, he's also running like Sash Flutter main, so into the like non Miraidon teams, right? Jumpluff is like a really good option because it exerts so much pressure, right? You can go for that Sleep Powder, you can go for that Tailwind, right? And then even if you lose the Pluff, then you have a backup speedy mode of like Flutter and Chi-Yu, right? In the back that can put on a lot of pressure. And I think like what worked for Junji on this team specifically was the team wasn't as reliant on Jumpluff as like other Jumpluff builds sometimes are, right? Like usually when you use Jumpluff on a Sun team, it's like the main engine for like all your offense. But when the core has its own intrinsic strength versus like certain cores, it's like really good. So for example, if you're playing versus a Miraidon Kali Ice team, right, you're not forced to bring Jumpluff, right? Because first off, it's not good into Miraidon. But second off, you have a Groudon, which is already naturally good. I don't know if you knew this, Joe, but the Kali Ice is actually in prison for the Kali Ice matchups.
Oh.
So it just straight up like walls them. Like they just can't do anything basically. So it turns off Trick Room, it turns off Leech Seed, it turns off Lance, right? And that's actually how like Junji decided to deal with like a fundamental weakness of the team, which was Kali Ice Lance puts on so much pressure against like these Sun teams. So if I have my own Kali Ice that just imprisons, like I just can't, I just can't get swept by Calyrex, right? So I think the way it kind of functioned around the Jumpluff was like very unique. And also too, Junji had talked to me a little bit too about why the Jumpluff choice. So originally it was Amoonguss on this team, but he was basically like, okay, well, it's usually just Rage Powder and dying, or like I'm puffing. And he's like, I'd rather be a faster like puff, and then I also get Tailwind option if I have Jumpluff. So the reason for pluffing on the team is very different than like your traditional reasoning for having on some team. Like again, usually it's the engine, right? In this case, it was like, oh, I could have a Amoonguss instead of a Jumpluff, but I'm running Sun, so Jumpluff makes a bit more sense for like the role, right? So
all right. Let's focus on last weekend's events. We have going off with EU. We had the Bologna Special Championship. So going to be honest, I was asleep for most of this, as often happens with the EU event. Have to go back afterwards and watch them. But congratulations to Matteo Volata with the championship there, earning their world invite. And finally, EU went back to their roots.
Of course.
with their CSR Zama Balance team to take the title. What do we think?
Yeah, like I think. Well, also not only did Mateo win, but Ruben also made finals again, and they got second place at Bologna again, which was super impressive to see. And I mean, you kind of alluded to it, Joe, saying they revisit their roots, but also like the roots of the format as well, where everyone said CSR Zama is going to be the most dominant team. And I mean, you can see Joe doesn't even have to scroll down. The first 5 teams here in the top 8 are not first 5, but 5 of the teams in the top 8 here are CSR Zama with not much variance in between them, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just like be straight up about it, right? Whenever you watch a European tournament, like we know we're gonna see balance as like the predominant team. Like it's just always gonna happen. Like I don't think I've ever watched a regional or like anything that's happened in Europe besides internationals, because internationals usually have like a bunch of different people there. But like I don't think I've ever watched a regional in Europe where I'm like, whoa, this team's crazy. You know what I mean? Like maybe on like day one stream sometimes, but like, obviously like in terms of the like long performing, like makes it deep in the tournament, like every time it's like, okay, it's like CSR Zama balance. You know what I mean?
Do we not remember Articuno winning a regional? Shout out to Killer.
Yeah, that was like an exception, not the rule though. You know what I mean? Like
just
like,
throwing it out there.
How many Articunos have we seen win in Europe? Like not many, right? Like,
one. We saw. We'll tell you they both got top 8, but yeah, I guess they're responsible. Oh, look at Francesco's team. He's got that. Tyson and I were talking about this. The Electric Seed Terapagos with Iron Valiant Sinistra and Iron Treads. That's crazy, Joe.
I don't know. I just think that like okay, I don't want to be like that guy because like of course like teams are good sometimes and like maybe you don't understand them. I don't think this team is good. I don't understand it either. Like I understand some of the concepts.
That's your Kelch speaking right now.
So I think it's important to understand why it did well as well, though, because the original like kind of like leader of the group, I believe, is Marco Silva. There was about 5 players I think that brought this team, that were able to bring it to the tournament. And when talking to Marco about the team leading up to the tournament, he was claiming it had 100% win rate against CSR Zama. So if you're playing an EU tournament where that's the majority of teams that you're going to play, a team like this, that's where you're going to see, a success with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I think for Francesco's credit specifically, I think the Valiant is way better than the Screamtail because I think Valiant provides more like varied support into the field than like Screamtail does. Screamtail is very like, I mean, it's not that it can't support, but it's like very much like Dazzling Gleam, disable, Encore, protect, right? Like it's very like straight up. You know exactly what it wants to do. I kind of like that Valiant has like a bit more like options, in my opinion.
What do you think, Gio?
I think this team is actually quite strong, to be honest, but it loses points off of cool factor by playing Calm Mind Terapagos. There's no disrespect. There's no disrespect. Chichiot, amazing player, very very cool team, but it's Calm Mind Terapagos, right? So like, it's only gonna get so far on the coolness scale, but it is the most unique team within this top 8 by far. And then I don't even recall exactly what the rest of Top Cut looked like, but I know it's gotta be arguably the most unique of the Top Cut entirely, right? So
yeah, I mean, personally for me, I think the coolest team is the 3rd place team. I think the 3rd place team is way cooler than all the other teams. Scarf Miraidon plus like Calm Mind Lefties Lunala, like yes, of course. Is it kind of balancy with like the Lunala like Rilla Instant? Yes, but like the Scarf Miraidon is like and I like Grimsnarl too. But the Scarf Miraidon is like a cool enough variation where I feel like there's like actually a lot of potential there. I actually think that team, if anything, was like the team where I looked in the tournament, I was like, wow, this actually looks like really strong. And I think with like some optimizations to like the team, it could actually be like really good going forward.
I like that Joe's the like epitome of the of like the "oh you're sweet" versus HR violation meme of like Terapagos Calm Mind Or it's like the Lunala combine, like, oh, you're so awesome, and then Terapagos combine, hello, human resources. Like he's just complaining about Terapagos. Which, I get it, I understand. It's not as fun, but I do think the team is cool with with the Sinistra to get the health back and everything, and essentially Timote is doing the same thing with leftovers and Rillaboom, just getting health back, just not immediately with the Sinistra here. But like, I guess my question, really, when it comes down to it, we see the EU players with their balance. We like to have our giggles. We like to laugh, but like it works for a reason, right? And like in formats where balance is the premier way to succeed, they do outperform North America significantly with it, right? And so like my question, because we had Milwaukee with like hardly any CSR Zamazensis, right? It was all Miraidon and Kali Ice and Miraidon Lunala and Koraidon Lunala, and so it was like why can't we do it too? I want some Americans winning some of these events with the balance teams if it's that good.
Well, I think it just comes down to fundamentally how differently like both player bases approach events. Like I feel like, okay, like I guess the way I would look at it is, I think in EU the fundamentals of the average player are a lot stronger, and I can say this from like having played in Europe a lot. Like when I play versus like random person I don't know in like round 2, right? Like I assume that they're going to make like at least like above average or like good, like solid plays, right? And like and usually I'm like pretty right about that, right? Like they're using a standard like balance team, like whatever. They're making like pretty reasonable plays, right? Then I'm in like, I don't know, like Fresno Regionals 2026, and I'm against like I don't know, like Iron Treads, Iron Valiant, like Iron Leaves on like one team with like Koraidon, Fluttermane, and like I don't know, Miraidon, right? Like I'm playing like double bike, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. First off, I don't know what this team is supposed to do. And I also don't know like how good this person is, because like the team looks really weird, right? And I've never heard of them before. And either they'll make like the most diabolical reads on you, like, and just like destroy you in game 1, or like they'll just like fall apart to like something really basic, like instant like Kali Ice, like fake out Trick Room, like lands 3 times and I win the game. It's like I just feel like the level of variance in NA is a lot higher, and like I think bringing balance teams into a regional field is more consistent in Europe, because the average level is like more like, and it's not, I'm not saying like there aren't like better players. There are obviously like way better players in Europe than like some other players in Europe, right? But more so like everyone kind of follows a more conventional structure of like how their teams look, the kind of game they're playing, right? And then when I'm playing at like an NA event, I feel like I could literally be playing versus anything. I could hit like a regular like Miraidon Kali Ice team, and I could hit some crazy double bike team. Then I can go to like Wheezing Koraidon CSR, and it's just like I feel like I'm being like kind of like jerked around a lot more. You know what I mean? Like you play so much more random stuff, and playing balance, and that's like first off really exhausting, but it's also like kind of hard. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard when you're playing versus weird teams all the time sometimes. I mean, you have consistent options, but like I think it uses like a ton of brain power too, honestly.
I think an interesting way of putting it is kind of, you were alluding to it a little bit, is like EU likes to build balance because it's consistent into tournaments. They know that they can bring it to a tournament and have a consistent way to approach most matchups, if not even they're positive. And that's kind of the way they approach the game, where I think a lot of American players, when they look at the metagame, they build a team that counters certain teams, where they're not building to win the field. They're saying, I'm going to play this kind of team and I'm going to counter that. They're not really building for like the spread of the tournament, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think in general too that like I don't know. I feel like there's definitely, don't get me wrong, there are still some crazy teams. Like I'm not saying that like Europe doesn't have like any sauce either. It's just that I think you see it in like less quantities sometimes, or it's like smaller adaptations like that are still cool, but like I think you need to be like paying attention to like see them, right? Like for example, like the Miraidon Lunala, if you look at it just at face value, you're like, oh, it's Instant Rilla Urshifu. You know what I mean? Like if we're looking at number 8, right? It's like, oh, how cool could that be, right? But then if you think about like the actual applications of like Scarf Miraidon, like some of the differences in the sets, right? Like then it's a little bit cooler, right? It's just that I think a lot of the like cooler or like crazier calls in EU are a little more nuanced within like move sets or like certain like ways they play. basically.
I think the other thing also, because Marco did win an internets with Charizard, right? So we can't just say everything is balanced, but I think it appears, at least it feels like, when something is off the wall out of EU, it's not one dude broke the meta. It's like 6 people brought the team. Like you even mentioned, there was Francesco. There was like 5 people on the team that all had this Terapagos Miraidon set. And you go back to Reg G with Marco and all the other players that were running that Heatran Screamtail Terapagos team, right? Like, it's that team by itself was like, that's a counter. That's like an off meta, like, oh, okay, there's a delineation. But because 14 people ran the same delineation, then it becomes a standard team, right? And I think that happens a lot in Europe. So I don't know if that's like a group player-based thing where they're all bringing the same team together, where in North America, team building is a little more fractured, right? You got the Tub guys, you got the Tang guys, you got, like, everyone is in their own groups, and maybe people build together more collectively in Europe. Is that fair?
It's funny you say that as well, because if you also look at the top 8, all the French players, coincidentally, all the French players brought the Lunala Miraidon team. And kind of as Gio said, in Portland as well is where all the Ice Riders had different like moves as well as that filler slot. All the French players kind of seems to have chosen either Volcarona or the Ogerpon Hearthflame. So that's interesting to see as well.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, I'd say it's interesting because in Europe, I think a lot of the lines for team building, of course, don't get me wrong, you're not going to have every single Italian running the same team. There are going to be differences, right? But, like, if you look at, like, a lot of the Italian teams, right, a lot of them came to the conclusion CSR Zama is the most consistent team into the field, right? That is the most common across the board team that we saw, right?
Yeah, let's actually show up or pull up Mateo's team so people can.
Yeah, I can do that actually.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm gonna have to reshare.
No, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's the conclusion that, like, a lot of them came to, right? And then, like, you look at the French players, like, oh, the conclusion was Lunala plus Scarf Miraidon is like a really good call, right? And I think that, like, where, like, the main differences come from the variations on the team, right? So, like, some small things I noticed even about the winning team here. You have the Terra Fairy on the Incineroar with AV, right? That's usually you'll see Terra Grass, right? A different Terra type defensively. As well, too, like, Font Pow has been picking up a bit more. I'd say, like, it's really between Font and, like, second dark coverage move that you'll see a lot on these teams. And then besides that, most of it, I'd say, looks pretty part of the course of what I'd expect. Maybe Dragon Zama is a little bit different because a lot of them are going towards water, but now they seem to be going back towards Dragon again. So,
yeah, Gio, what are your thoughts on Mateo's event-winning team here?
I think it's extremely stable. As you mentioned before, the Terra types between those two Pokemon alter a bit. Incineroar has been seeing, on Assault Vest has been seeing water, like, quite consistently. On non-Assault Vest, we've been seeing Bug as the predominant Terra type, and so Fairy is pretty interesting here. Another thing is a lot of the other Caloric Shadow were Focus Sash. I think it's kind of like a dichotomy between, like, you have Life Orb and Focus Sash, and then the third item, like, options are much less common than those two. So it's predominantly between those two items. Amoonguss finding its way on this team as well is a very common choice, but we see Rillaboom commonly on these teams as well. Some teams have Rillaboom and Ogerpon Hearthflame as, like, a double Grassy Glide combination. And we've been seeing this Raging Bolt set pick up more and more over the past few weeks, starting with the week leading up to Portland, and it's been skyrocketing ever since with Bologna. Every single one of the Shadow Riders Zamazenta teams actually had Raging Bolts within the top 8, I believe. All 5 of them. So that's another very clear meta trend, is that Raging Bolt is back and arguably stronger than ever. May I say? I mean, I think that might be a stretch, but it's still
it's
very,
not stronger
very,
than Regulation F Raging Bolt.
It's still, yeah, that's true. It's very, very powerful in this format.
I love Raging Bolt. It's a great point to bring it up because I'm, sitting here. I remember I was just kind of blown away in Milwaukee when we were casting, like, how much Raging Bolt was doing in the matchups it was brought, and, like, obviously there's all these, all these Pokemon that it's really good into. And most of the time, it's on a Koraidon team or a Groudon team, like a way to have the sun to activate photosynthesis. In here, it's not. But if you know you're going to run into photosynthesis teams, then you're going to get the inherent benefit out of it. But like, you know, looking at the stats from Bologna, like the regular, just day one player base, the EU, they didn't get the email. They didn't get the message that Raging Bolt was back. Because it's not even in the top 12 Pokemon in EU. It is literally, 12% was Tornadus, which how people are running Tornadus in a Miraidon format, I give you more credit. You are a braver person than I am. But if you look on day 2 of Bologna, it's the number 5 most commonly used non-restricted Pokemon. And I apologize if my part was vacuuming outside right now, the complex. So how does it go from literally not even top 12 to the 5th most commonly used Pokemon by like a wide stretch?
I think like a big thing about it is, I mean, realistically, right, on day 1, you're going to see a bit more saturation of like some different Pokemon sometimes. And then you'll see like the stronger meta calls kind of progress into like what, you know, usually is like the best part of day 2, right? So, I mean, if you notice, right, like the Pokemon that ended up like placing really high, like in the top 12 in day 2 of Bologna, like if you look at like every single team that have performed well in cut, right, like pretty much had like multiple of those mons on the team, right? So I think like it's just kind of a situation in which, for example, right, like Tornadus is a very splashable Tailwind mon, so it's not like inconceivable to think that like a lot of people would bring Tornadus on day 1 because of the size of the tournament, but like it might not be the best like meta call or not be the best like prankster Tailwind setter, and we obviously saw that as it got phased out for like Ursaluna Hizui, right? Or like Farigiraf, for example, something that you could put conventionally on a lot of like Miraidon builds, right? But it's probably not the best call in the metagame right now. So again, we're seeing it like phased out, right? And I think like that's kind of a big thing between day 1 and day 2. It's still good to know generally what's in the field in day 1, right? Because that's good information you could take, for example, going to next tournament, being like, okay, so I still have to be ready for like, for example, Farigiraf and Tornadus at NAIC, because there's a very likely or a high probability like I'll hit those Pokemon anyways, right? But as we reach into day 2, like what are the Pokemon I actually expect to see more? And I think you just generally see like, you know, for example, Raging Bolt, like I genuinely don't even know how it didn't get in the top 12. I'm gonna tell you the truth, right? Like I actually
saying, bro,
like that is for what it's worth, genuinely crazy that like Farigiraf and Tornadus made it in before Raging Bolt, because I think that mon is really good, but maybe it was just a situation where like a lot of the top players with the CSR Zama stuff had caught on to Raging Bolt being really good, and then the general field didn't really like respect that as much, you know? So that's a crazy percentage share. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? You go from not even being on the thing to them being like 27% of the field. That's actually like pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it as well, I mean, and EU as well, kind of, Joe, both of you had said where I think a lot of the players really are using those stats to their advantage now, where we see a lot more Miraidon, for example. Like Miraidon did really, really well here, and then it continued to do well. Same thing with like the Koraidon teams as well. So you can kind of bring Raging Bolt now specifically because you're either using the photosynthesis or you're getting the electric terrain. So Miraidon is kind of like a budget Miraidon where it's that electric dragon and you're still using either the weather or the terrain to your advantage, and it's just kind of a big damaging piece. But yeah, I mean, Joe, as you said, like it not being in day 1 at all and then going to 27% is kind of insane.
Yeah, it's like you almost don't know which number to trust, right? What like was the general pool correct that it's not as strong as we think? Because I thought it was really good after Milwaukee and that did not have as great of a performance in Portland. Or was the day 2 crowd wrong? Are they just lucky that all the players that perform well happen to have a Raging Bolt on their team, right? Because you can, as Joe mentioned, like you can see the reason that so many of those Pokemon, like the teams that all have Heartflame, Grimmsnarl, Rillaboom on it, like a lot of them made top cut, so therefore a lot of them are the percentage of the day 2 players, right? So sometimes like almost like both ends on the extreme can tell different stories, but whichever stat you're trying to argue. Like you can say, oh, look at Farigiraf, it's a really solid, splashable, priority Pokemon at 13%, blah, 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 blah. And like, if you wanted to argue that Farigiraf is dog water, you could say, look, Farigiraf didn't even convert to day 2. Well, like, and it's just like the same argument on both ends.
Yeah. I think it really just comes down to as well, like, just to even address, what you had said earlier, like, I think that Raging Bolt, right, will always be a good Pokemon, right? It doesn't matter like what format you put this thing in. It can be a format with like 5 ground types and it'll still probably be really good. Like, I think it is just a Pokemon that fundamentally has such a good stat spread, so much variety in what it can do. Like, it doesn't seem like it's that fast, but its speed tier is actually really not that bad if you were to run it fast, because you outspeed a lot of like common meta things in like Tailwind, and like if you can't outspeed them, you just like Thunderclap them instead, right? Like, I just think it's a Pokemon that has so much versatility. You can run the Calm Mindset, you can run like Life Orb offensive, you can run Magnet, right? You can run Assault Vest, right? If you want to play a bulkier. There's just like so many options, and Pokemon like that just have so much variety end up doing really well at a high level, just because there's so many different ways you can use a Pokemon that can like completely change a matchup, right? It's even like the thing you see with Incineroar, right? Like the way you play against a Goggles Incineroar versus a Rocky Helmet Incineroar versus a Covert Cloak Incineroar versus an Assault Vest Incineroar, right? Like they're like, yes, is it the same Pokemon? Does it have the same overlapping weaknesses sometimes? Absolutely. But like all of those items can completely change how you have to play into it. And I think like it's kind of the same with Raging Bolt. And that's why a lot of the Pokemon you see at like even the top 6, right? They have so much variety in how they play, right? Like there's so many different sets besides like Rillaboom and Amoonguss, but like they're just so good at their role. Like obviously, they're just good, right? But everything else, right? You can see like a lot of variety in that for sure.
Yeah, well, obviously, Rillaboom is a European Pokemon since it's from the Galar region, so that's why it always has such a big showing at these EU events. All right, let's move on to our next event that happened last weekend, which was the Hong Kong Master Ball League, and we don't actually talk as often about the Asian tournaments here on the podcast, so I figured with having you guys on, might want to spice it up, talk about these travel awards and 2025 Worlds invites that were given out to the players here in Hong Kong. So congratulations to all of them, and hopefully we see them in Anaheim this summer. And I think the big thing here is it's still Miraidon's world. We're just living in it, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in North America. Like, it's at least out of this top 8, it's pretty much like choose Miraidon and then choose your second restricted.
Yeah, we saw a lot more Zama Mirai do well here than like any other region, I think, so far. I mean, obviously a top 16 within Milwaukee, but besides that, it hasn't really seen like any like super high placing success. I think there was one in Victory Road that ended up placing pretty well, like one of the Grassroots tournaments. But this is like the first like major, obviously, that like Zama Mirai won, and even then it had another placement in top 4, so pretty strong. I mean, I don't want to say it's like like my team, because technically it's different now, but the original build, like structured when I had started working on it, right, like it was a Zama and then the Ditto over the Chen Pao, and then Shohei Kimura ended up bringing it to what's it called? He ended up bringing it to Melbourne and put Chen Pao over the Ditto, and that seems to be like the main thing that's picked up, along with like having the Struggle Bug Volcarona as well with Quiver Dance. I think is a big thing that like a lot of these teams have adapted as well for like those Terapagos and Zama matchups.
I mean, on the flip side as well,
I just want to say it can't be Joe's team if it doesn't have Ditto on it. That's my rule. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
Ditto or Pluff has to be like the signature Pokemon of the team.
Yeah,
or like a Sunsetter. But Miraidon's other partner being the Kyrex Ice Rider here, I think there's actually a lot of cool teams. Obviously, we have like the Michael team there in 8th, kind of being the standard build, the ground where people are working from. But then there's like a Pelipper and an Iron Treads and an Annihilate on Benji's team, which I think are all really interesting options in ways where you can kind of fix some of the team's problems, where for example, in 4th, the Iron Treads helping against like the Miraidon mirrors is very, very strong. And you're also boosting something like the Urshifu, where Benji, I feel like struggled maybe more into the CSR Zama and wanted to approach that with Annihilate. So I always think that's cool, not only of just Hong Kong, but how the meta develops as well over time. how people approach different matchups using the same duo, because I feel like a lot of times in early format you do see something like Michael's team that can consistently do well, like getting 8th here, and they're kind of, we see players kind of pick up on that team and kind of hold on to it and value that consistency and carry that to their tournaments, where we see a lot more innovation, especially coming up into NAIC. So tournaments like Hong Kong, like Bologna, we see a lot of those innovations that are going to maybe stick. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you see an Annihilate sneak into NAIC, or from Bologna you see those call mindsets on the Lunala sneak in as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think a big thing too is just like the Annihilate adaptation. I think is pretty cool because, again, like one of the biggest weaknesses of the Kali Ices now that are going to lefties least sheet set is Incineroar is really good at like annoying them with like parting shots, with Intimidate, right? And having an Annihilate there creates like some active pressure to stop that, and also to in the mirrors, you can go for coaching onto your own Kali Ice, right, to make it really oppressive. So yeah, I agree. I think it's really strong. It's a good meta adaptation. I think it's interesting with a lot of these events outside of NA and Europe, because it seems like they have a little bit less of a meta impact sometimes on our circuit. But I mean, I like Bingji Wang, for example. Like I recognize him still. Like he was around in NA playing for a while, you know, and now, you know, he did really well here, of course, and now he's gonna be at Worlds, right? So it's definitely cool to see, you know, obviously players that maybe you know, like we're playing in the States or like different areas for a while, then come over. I mean, of course, like, you know, it's not too far from him, but like, yeah, it's just cool to see like, you know, players, you know, like traveling around or like shifting between circuits, you know, like playing different tournaments, and it's really cool to see the differences that has on the meta as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have their own metagame, and, you know, as you mentioned, doesn't often affect our results here, but you guys are here for the meta discussion. Oh, what does this mean? Gio, I'm here for the spice. You know what I mean? That's why I check out all these events. Like, we got Covert Cloak, Stellar, Dark Urshifu on the squad. We got Wellspring, Ogerpon when nobody's using it. There's a Ho-Oh. Scroll all the way down, Joe. We got a Venusaur in top 16 with Sableye, Yan Mega, bro. Like, this is what
is the Gravity? It's Gravity Hypnosis. It's Gravity Hypnosis. Oh my goodness.
What would you do if you faced this, Gio? What were your thoughts? If you pull, okay, good luck, have fun, exchange team sheets, and then this is what you see.
I pull Ice Rider Groudon, you're saying?
Yeah. With
this team, bro.
Sableye, Venusaur.
I mean, it's probably like the same sort of matchup as I had into Junsei. It's just like the team is a little different. So I guess it's like kind of comparable in that regard. So it's a bit of a cheat code for me in comparison to others, because people will be like, what is this? Like, what am I looking at? But I'm like, I've seen this before, just in a different light. So like the matchup for me probably wouldn't be as scary. But I like, on topic of crazy Pokemon, I think Rhydon is due for like a very strong finish. I think Rhydon and Rhyperior actually have a lot of tools in the way that it negates both Thunder Wave from Grimmsnarl and both the Electro Drift and Volt Switch options from Rhydon. And so you can create a more consistent like opening turn against Rhydon teams because of that, and heavily limit their options because of that. Rhydon has insane bulk, but I feel like people just have not appreciated it.
Hey, it's the first Pokemon ever made, baby. Okay, show some respect to Rhydon.
I'm a huge fan of Rhydon and Rhyperior.
Gio has been talking about it in my ear for what seems like weeks now.
Dude. We got a team build. I've been on the Rhyperior train all the way back to Reg G. Like, literally, I've fished on the podcast many times. People are tired of it, but like what Sejun did with Pachirisu at Worlds, you could just do with Rhyperior or Rhydon, because you Terra Fairy, you're immune to Draco, you're Lightning Rod, you're taking away all the electric attacks from, like, Miraidon just can't play the game if Rhydon's on the field.
It got top 4 at Worlds over a decade ago.
Exactly.
In 2013.
They knew before Miraidon. They said it's going to be a big counter.
It's been a good Pokemon.
Also, like, I like have to open this, like, because I was looking at this on the side too, where we were talking about Rhydon. I like have to open up this Yan Mega team. Like,
I told you,
funny.
It's crazy.
It's really funny.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
There is
gravity on the Kali
Ice. There is one Protect on the team, and it's on Yan Mega.
Yep.
And it's got top 16.
I also think it's really funny that they gave the Mega Terra Dragon instead of like Terra Ghost. This is like, nah, like this thing's defensively gonna. I mean, I guess it's for Urshifu probably, like Surging Strikes, right? But it's just like really funny. Not to mention like the Terra Electric Mental Herb, like Taunt Gravity Kali Ice, like like the Choice Band Groudon as well. It's just like a really funny team. Like I could just imagine like playing into this. It's like round one of NAIC. I sit down, I'm like, oh man, like what am I gonna play versus? I just like see this team. I'm like, yo, what is going on? You know what I mean?
Bro.
Yeah.
Honestly, this might be the coolest team we've seen all season. This is. Oh, and Joe is in. Joe's opening the team builder as we speak because it's got Venusaur.
Yeah, might just have to. It's a pretty crazy team.
Dude, what is this?
I truthfully don't even know where to go from it. Like, there's so many different pieces. It actually looks like a pretty flexible team as well. Like, you have you kind of put your foot on the gas, like with the gravity. I mean, you have two different gravity setters, right? You can either go Sableye, you can go Calyrex. Venusaur, I feel like with Life Orb has to do some sort of damage, right? Into all those Incineroar and Rillaboom teams. You just kind of sludge bomb them and they take a lot of damage and Groudon cleans up.
In my opinion,
you have the taunt because Glacial Lance.
Yeah, you have taunt for the Amoonguss as well.
So
this looks like a diabolical best of one team. That's all I gotta say.
Hey, Trick Room into Gravity Precipice Blades.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the Chu Kinyin, our real hero.
The fast gravity with Prankster, and then you have the slow fast gravity with the Trick Room setup with Ice Rider.
They might have finished 16th. But they are the real winners of the
top 16 is top 16.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully you see some of these. It looks like top 12 awarded Worlds invites there. So
I am really bummed because it means they didn't qualify. But you know what?
It deserves it.
It just means you're gonna bring it to Worlds, Joe. That's just you gotta carry the mantle.
Okay, I don't know about that, Joe. But maybe we could play it on ladder a little bit or something.
Okay.
Something interesting as well, speaking of Hong Kong and Bologna, and speaking of overseas events that kind of impact the NA metagame as well, is Japan Nats actually isn't going to be until after NAIC, which I feel like is a large part of inspiration for a lot of North American players to kind of find a team. If you're struggling to find a team last minute, normally it would be watch Japan Nats, maybe you'll find something. Pick that up and bring
look
it
at the VOD.
Exactly. You bring it there and you have something for NAIC. But I think it'll be really cool to see Japan Nats come after NAIC. I just want to slip that in. I thought that was cool.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, Japan Nats always says stuff. I remember I was playing on ladder, one of the top 8 teams last year, which is the Power Herb Archaladon on the choice or with the Scarf Kyogre, I think was and it's like, why do you need the Power Herb if you have the Kyogre already? But then the amount of times I was playing it was like, oh, I'll set up first and then bring the Kyogre in afterwards. Don't need to have them on the field at the same time together. Sometimes that those best of one strats they cook on the ladder for sure.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me of yesterday, in voice chat or whatever. We had a friend playing games or whatever, and got completely cooked by what was it? Choice Specs Lunala.
Gio sent the paste. Hold on, I'll find it. I think
I just pulled it up here. Let me see if I can share the
when you all told me about it, I was like, I recognize this team. It qualified for Worlds.
I gotta zoom in a little bit, but it's pretty funny.
Overcloak Groudon,
yeah, it's Overcloak Groudon because this qualified for Japan Nats, right? Yeah.
No, Gambit, let's go.
Yes,
in the big 2025
for Japan Nationals and Worlds. It was 26th, I want to say.
Where is King Gambit, by the way?
Oh, look, I think it was 26th.
Yeah. 40, 50,
it was
22% of people have an
26th place in the qualifier
on their team. Where is King Gambit right now? There's CSR on 40% of the teams. Just
Zamazenta just exists.
Zama and Iron Hands. It's so sad. And Urshifu. Zama, Iron Hands, Urshifu. Koraidon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Come
on, Joe, you're the King Gambit guy.
I know, but
you can make it work.
I was thinking about it in G, but then I just put Ditto there, and I was like, wow, this is so much better.
Now, what about Entei? Because I do think Entei is kind of
I think it's a
pretty solid Pokemon. Do you think how if someone was going to NAIC, how would you make Entei work on a team?
I think Tailwind plus Choice Band, probably. Or like Tailwind plus Scarf is probably good.
I think the best use of Entei this season, both by performance and in my opinion, was from Kunvin Kan. He's like 17 years old from the Netherlands. He got top 8 in Utrecht with it.
Wow.
And that was a very, very strong team. I forgot exactly what was on it. I know it was Maridon, Whimsicott, Entei, and then I forget what else was on it. But I know those for sure.
Because it just seems like it's nice into all these fire types, and then it can't be intimidated and stuff. You know, like I feel like there is, or you know, maybe Kyogre. It obviously gives it a tough day, but like I don't know. I feel like if as somebody like me who's trying to make Ho-Oh work, you know, like just don't use my restricted slot. Just use Entei and still get the Sacred Fires off without taking up a restricted.
Yeah,
That's
it was
exactly
Maridon, Lunala, Whimsicott, Entei, Urshifu Dark Iron Hands.
Oh, okay.
So,
Like I was gonna say, yeah, like you don't have to use your restricted slot. You can put Entei on the team, and I think with Inner Focus, it actually serves its own purpose as well. Like kind of breaking those balance teams, those Incineroar, Rillaboom
Yeah.
teams that you can't get
Really
faked
good
out, and you
Zamasensa,
still get
too.
access to Sacred Fire, exactly, to burn things like the Zamasensa. You could throw Snarl on there if Lunala is annoying for you as well. You have a lot of utility in Pokemon if that's what your team needs, and you need something like Ho-Oh, like you said, Joe.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm cooked. We're working with our community. We're making a Shadow Rider Ho-Oh team. That's our duo, and it's fun. Like there are kernels of like potential when I'm playing. You know what I mean? I'm like this turn with Cornerstone worked out really well. Like there's something we can do here. And then other time it's like I would have lost if they only had 3 Pokemon. You know what I mean? So like some of these matches, I need you guys. You're the professionals. Need your advice on how we can make CSR and Ho-Oh work, because we want to take it to like an actual tournament and stuff. Like make it work. Make it tournament. This is my free coaching session, Joe. It's time to lock in.
I feel like you need Grimmsnarl on that. Me personally, that's the first one I put right on there. You know, screens, Thunderwave. Look, Grimmsnarl can make any team good. When you have yellow magic and you're throwing it out at like, you know, multiple Mons, they don't get to move. It's great. It's a great day, you know? So that's my advice. I say start with Grimmsnarl.
I actually think Ho-Oh is really, really strong, and
Yo,
people.
I freaking love
and
Geo.
Rhydon. Ho-Oh and Rhydon.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I don't like. It's very challenging to build a team with either of them, or like collectively. But I think that they each have their respective roles in the metagame, and we're just waiting on someone to figure it out. And I think it's going to take until the World Championships, because we just haven't seen enough of this format, and it hasn't moved in a direction where we've progressed the metagame enough. Just because like the most notable tournaments of the format are North American Internationals, Japan Nationals, and then the World Championships, right? And so we just haven't gotten to any of those yet, and we're on the precipice of those. But after those, I think we'll start to see very, very interesting teams pop up across July when people are testing leading up to the World Championships. We'll see a lot of crazy stuff, and I think that Ho-Oh has a lot of potential to be one of those Pokemon.
I love it, Gio. All right, enough on the OHKO team building difficulties. Let's get into our last topic of the podcast here, which looks like Scarlet and Violet got a glow up team on the Switch 2. Looks a lot better, 60 FPS. You know, I can't tell the difference. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know the difference between all the pixels on screen or whatever, but I'm excited for the people that do know the difference. I know this is on the Switch 2. The visual upgrade is gonna, like, there was like 500 Gyarados on the screen at once in that trailer, which I was literally having a heart attack just looking at it. Because if it was my Switch from 2017, it would have been like a C4 bomb planted if they had that many Pokemon on the screen at the same time. So obviously, Switch 2 is not legal to use at NAIC because it's literally just coming out, you know, as of the day we're recording. So next week would not be enough time for them to get everything set up with the Switch 2. But what are our thoughts about the future of Scarlet and Violet, as who knows how long we're going to be playing this game until the next generation comes out?
I mean, look, I'm all down to like be looking at like nicer pixels in my face, you know what I mean, as I'm like playing the game, because honestly, like I do think Scarlet and Violet get like way too much flack sometimes because I actually think as games they're really really good, and like the only issues that people like have with them is like random stuff that like can definitely be like fixed, right? Like, oh, sometimes during games there'll be disconnects, right? Or like there'll be like, some random like issues, with like like even like how it processes like a turn or like a pixel or two, you know what I mean? Or just like looks like a little uglier than it should. Like,
Are you
like,
talking yourself out of your point as you're saying it, Joe?
no, like no,
You're
like the
kinda
thing is
presenting reasons.
no. But the thing is like when I played the game like the first time, the feeling I had of like playing that Pokemon game, it was really cool, right? And I think that now don't get me wrong, right? I think the DLCs definitely make it a better game, but I think with the consistent content that they put into the game, like the visual upgrade feels like the little like bow on top of like, oh, this is really cool. You know what I mean? And it's like an actually good like Pokemon game, right? Because I actually recently like we were playing a couple of friendlies, just going back to like Sword and Shield, right?
That's
And
what I was
like
gonna
playing on the
say.
game, I'm like, wow, this game was like really beautiful. Like the battles were like super beautiful, like everything. I'm like, and then we went from that to like what was it?
The
Polygon.
grandmas at the park.
No,
you know?
Polygon Torkoal, Polygon Torkoal with the when it gets earthquaked, it like its health bar drops like this like immediately, right? Like obviously like that's been fixed, but my point being like the battles felt so clean and refined in Sword and Shield, and hopefully with this visual upgrade, then it really gets like Scarlet and Violet to like that visual quality, because I actually really think like when I looked at Sword and Shield, I was like, wow, this is the best like Pokemon battling's like ever been, right? But then it was like a little bit of a slouch on like the storytelling and like the actual content in the game. And then like this game has a lot of content and had like so much potential in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
also still good. Like I like the game, but like the visuals are just like, oh, it could be like just better, and then it'd be like a beautiful experience. You know what I mean? So I'm actually very excited. Like I think it will actually be very like game changing for it, in my opinion.
I think that there's also something to add with champions coming around. I think that a graphical upgrade like this was necessary because we all saw how that was looking in their first trailer of it, and that looked very good. So I feel like this is like a step in the right direction. Of course, it would require people to actually get the Switch 2 instead of just the straight up Nintendo Switch or a Switch Lite, depending on how demanding the game is. But of course, that will be on the Switch and on mobile, so hopefully not too demanding, but it did look very good. So, your guess is as good as mine as to what that'll require.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think for regionals, maybe even NAIC, they might have the Switch 2 for like the stream game, so that stream looks a little bit better. But I want to get my hopes up too high. And then the
I
other thing
doubt it.
I
This is
think,
bursting
They
bubble
don't-
right now.
yeah.
That is not happening.
look,
They don't have
I
the
you
other
can
issues.
believe, you can
Yeah.
believe, but
Spoilers.
No.
you
no.
mentioned champions, Gio, and I think it's so funny. They kind of have to up the graphics, not only because they should be held to a higher standard, but because of all the mechanics they're throwing at you. Like the amount of processing power you probably need to process a Z-Move, Dynamax,
Yeah.
Terastallization Mega, like all on your screen happening at the same
My-
time.
I want
My
to see those like
Terrabug
all four
Dynamax
happen in one
Groudon.
turn.
Like,
that's what I was thinking,
like
Gio.
3 minutes for like the turn one to
Yeah,
use all
yeah.
the
Like the
mechanics.
poor guy running the thing on like his first iPhone is probably going to become like a bomb where
The
it's like
iPhone,
just
the
an
guy with the
explosion.
iPhone 5.
Yeah, like it blows up. It's like overheating.
It gets
But like
internally
Joe,
fried. Yeah.
yeah, and like Joe said as well with like Sword and Shield, like being a little bit biased, it kind of was like a symptom of the game where the whole setting was in these giant arenas. Battles felt
Yeah.
way more dramatic and grand, and Dynamax as well being the mechanic as well. But I think definitely a lot of eyes are going to be on Gen 10. It is the 10th generation of Pokemon. They have to go all out with it. Like it's going to be a grand game, and with like how the Switch 2 looks in general, it has to be amazing.
Yeah.
I would say, like, for me with the visuals and like with the Switch 2 upgrade of Sword and Shield, I think it's just like it's just happy additional things. Like it's a good thing that it's not it's not an essential, right? Like, because as we know, you can't play Switch 2 yet. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are for Worlds. I would think through Worlds you still have to play on the Switch 1.
I'm
Just
praying for Worlds.
just so that because some people can't play on, not gonna have access to buying a Switch 2 yet because it's out of stock everywhere, right? So
yeah.
Not only that, I think it makes sense that until the next generation Pokemon comes out, that they just run it on the Switch and the Switch Lights. Like that just makes the most sense to me personally. But I didn't mean to cut you off.
If there's interaction, right, with Switch 2 and Switch 1, the same as 3DS and DS, like you could both play Black and White on a 3DS and a DS and battle each other. Excuse me, I do think it would be beneficial for next season because we always have this drop, and this is the longest drop we're going to have because usually it's 3 years and you get the next one. We're going to have this potential next year because we don't know, when the next Pokemon game is coming out. Like we're going to need every morsel of entertainment we can get to keep people engaged in this 3-year-old game where when Joe's out here getting second place at Daytona Regionals with 35 players in the tournament because we're still on freaking 3DS when the Switch has been out for 2 years already, right? Like that's what I'm concerned about next season if they don't have Switch 2 capabilities.
That's a good question.
That'll be tough.
I have a theory actually, and of course, this is just my theory. So a couple of factors that are making me think this, okay?
Oh, no.
So for the people chasing the travel award for LAIC, there's been no news about leaderboards for it, right? We're in the drought period, and right before Scarlet and Violet, we had a 6-month break after Worlds until the next game was out and released, right? Now, of course, it depends on the champion time frame of being released, because Champions is just going to come out late 2026, right? Then, of course, we're just going to play on Scarlet and Violet for another year. But if it comes out, let's say it comes out December or early, early January, it wouldn't be the most crazy logical leap that they give us another gap of 6 months and then the season restarts again with the new games. That being said, if it's something, because this is just a theory, right? If not, we probably just play Scarlet and Violet again. But I think they would probably start allowing Switch 2s by September, honestly, after Worlds. I think, honestly, they'd probably not allow Switch 2s for NAIC and Worlds just because they wouldn't have enough familiarity with the differences between the Switch. What does that compatibility look like? How do they work together? I'm sure knowing Pokemon, a breadth of new connection issues can come out of those two devices. So I think they would probably wait to actually try it until September. But there's also a chance, and no one's talked about it. I mean, look, we had a break after Sword and Shield had its final, Worlds. Maybe there's another, break, because what is it going to look like? Are we going to have a 4th year of Scarlet Violet Worlds? Are we going to have? If we are, then we are. That's great. I mean, I get to play on the Switch too. Hopefully, by that point,
I think we go back to Reg A for a series, right?
Reg
A.
It's actually.
No, I'm just saying we got to do something. What are we going to do? Add a third restricted? We're kind of out of formats right now.
I mean, it's really funny too. It's with the 4 years. I mean, the whole thing of Scarlet and Violet is you're going to school. You've kind of completed Scarlet Violet University if you have the 4 years of Scarlet and Violet.
Well, I will say, though, one other thing is that for potential formats, in the rule book, I remember seeing this a while ago, in the tournament handbook, I believe, or it's in one of the handbooks online, there's a clause in there that specifies, formats, there's a specific clause regarding terrestrialization, hinting at the fact that there could be a format that doesn't have terrestrialization. Similar to how we had no Dynamax in Series 10. So that is possible.
So we can do the Sun Moon Ultra series formats from 2019 where we start out no Legend, no Paradox, no Terra. And then it is, Legends or Paradox are allowed, no Terra. And then you get to the Ultra, the Scarlet and Violet, premiere format for Worlds, where you re-allow everything. By that time, remember, Legend ZA is coming out, where you're going to have regional variants. And so for next year's Worlds, if we do have a whole other year of Scarlet and Violet, we will be adding new Pokemon from Legend ZA, like we did with Reg D for Yokohama.
And you would have Yveltal, Xerneas, and Zygarde back in the game as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that would mean that we get another GS Cup format then.
I'm sure with that.
In that case, I'm fine with that too. I'm 100% fine with that too.
Yeah, I want my Terra Ghost.
I understand a lot of other.
Xerneas back. Give me Xerneas.
Yeah,
Dude.
Terra Xerneas.
Terragos Xerneas with choice specs, Fluttermane or whatever. You just like
that's
Terra
how
Fairy
fairy
Xerneas.
aura, like
Terra Fairy Xerneas, you just do like absurd amounts of
Yep.
damage after one Geomancy.
Yeah,
and
like
it's doing even more.
players thought like Terra Fairy Specs Fluttermane was bad. Oh, I can't wait until they get with a Terra Fairy Geomancy Moonblast.
Yeah, I don't want Xerneas back, but if it's gonna come back, whatever. I think we're not focused on the real problem. The real problem is that Shedinja is currently not in the game, and if you bring every Pokemon back, you are bringing a terastallizing. This Pokemon cannot take damage. Terra electric air balloon Shedinja into the format.
We're just playing 2010 at that point. Just everyone run Tyranitar. Let's go.
Yeah, I think you have to. Right?
Tyranitar, run Will-O-Wisp Vincent on every team. You gotta do what you gotta do.
I want the Tapus back so bad because I love them. Like that would be awesome.
Ultra Beast,
Ultra Beast, bro. Could you imagine the Ultra Beast with terastallizing? Get Nihilego out of that dog water typing. Oh my god.
I think it is a very
would go crazy.
Yeah. I think it is a very valid, actually, prediction if you weren't predicting the break or you weren't predicting that, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you were predicting that we would have another year of Scarlet and Violet, like, my two ideas would be, so there's this, like, giant block of, like, land, right? On, like, the Scarlet Violet map. It's just, like, this giant stone wall, right? And, like, this is like some, like, Pokemon theories, like, Gen 1 what's under the truck thing, right? But, like, why would they have a giant rock that you can't climb, that you can't go on top of, that's just sitting there in the ocean? If maybe it was originally planned to be content and then they decided not to include it or whatever. But like, there is no way you just have like this giant stone structure there. You're like, oh yeah, we just put it there for fun. You know what I mean? Like there has to be a reason why. Do you not remember
the locked door in X and Y for Volcanion that never opened?
They
very often do this. Pokemon has ideas and then they just don't. They just
it's
don't.
Like it's just a stone thing there. It's chill. Like
that's just. Hey, have you ever been to Spain? Like you don't know. Yeah. Maybe that rock is there.
Yeah,
no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens.
Honestly,
I'm sure.
Oh, you know what would be great? Honestly, now that we were talking about like Switch 2 stuff,
yeah.
Honestly, I would love it if they even if they didn't do like extra content or whatever, and they just had like transfers, and even if they didn't have transfers, please release a music pack for the game. I don't even care if I have to buy it for like $5, so I can listen to any track from the previous games I want to. That's like
there's that Nintendo Music website thing that has all the Nintendo songs on it.
Joe, I'm saying like, yeah, but what if I'm like battling, you know what I mean? And I don't want to listen to like Unova Legends for like the 20th time, you know what I mean? Like maybe I want to listen to like Getsis, you know what I mean? Or like something like that. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's like such an easy thing that Game Freak could do. And so many people would definitely get it.
Updating a 3-year-old game. Okay.
So many people would do that. So many people would buy that.
That's going to be in the DLC when the magical thing breaks out of the rock, Joe.
Or as in Champions.
Yeah, that's what's in the rock. Is there's so many music tracks. They're all stuck within the rock, and they're breaking out.
In Champions, you're getting music packs. You're getting trainer avatar packs. You're getting all the different outfits and everything. And so if you want music, you're gonna get in Champions.
If that's the case, Game Freak's gonna be rich off of me. That's all I'm gonna say. Like.
Dude, yeah, I know. Sierra and I got so much flack on the podcast when we said we're excited for microtransactions and Champions. And they're like, "Oh, you can shoot them." It's like, oh, my bad. I'm willing to spend $4 for my character to look like Cynthia. Like, my bad, bro. Like,
nah, if they're real, bro, they'll drop the loot boxes. We'll just be
fine. My goodness.
We'll drop the loot boxes because half of Europe is not allowed to have loot boxes, so NA starts winning more events because they can't play the game.
Pay to win Champions, yeah.
Like
you go to terrestrialize your Pokemon and the little apple thing pops up to swipe your credit card to buy the terrestrialization mechanic.
Yeah.
Oh, you've terrestrialized 10 times today. Would you like to terrestrialize more for $3? Yeah.
You got to charge your Terra Orb for $10.
Yes, exactly. Oh my
okay,
God.
Don't give them ideas.
Or 12, or wait 12 hours, right? That's the little thing. You wait 12 hours. There's definitely going to be daily missions too,
of course,
Dynamax a Pokemon today, or use a Z move today. Like they're going to have stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm very interested actually, like what that would look like, because it seems like the prioritization is like that customization of we have so many overlapping mechanics, we can literally do anything. right? But like, what does that actually look like in practice, right? Because I can't even fathom a turn where I'm like looking at the board, right? And like the Charizard Gigantamaxes,
Yeah.
right? The Gengar Mega Evolves, right?
Dondozo
The
Terrasalizes.
Tapu Koko clicks a Z move, electric Z move into the Charizard, and then you have like the Dondozo terrestrializing. What does this even look like? You're gonna be playing a game. It's gonna be 5 minutes, and you're gonna have seen like the final mechanic go off before like you even get to see turn one.
Yeah, it's back to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It's a turn. It's 2019 where at the start of the turn, players both switch their Groudon and Kyogre in, and Ultra Necrozma uses his Z move.
Ultra Burst,
and then the Mega Evolution.
Those were the worst commentary. Where you're just sitting there for like a minute and a half with no action, and like, oh man, he didn't protect in front of Ultra Necrozma. He's just going to get destroyed. But I got to sit here and talk for a minute and a half about how he's going to get one shot. Like, that was absolutely the worst. But all right, let's wrap up the pod, friends. So, how about to end all of our episodes? We have to end it with our question of the week. So for anyone just joining our podcast for the first time, always end it. We have a link down below in our Discord. We have a channel for the question of the week where you can ask if you have any burning questions for us or our guests. You can ask at the end of the show. So where I think there's a nice little cute one from there are some fun ones. I'll give them maybe next week. There's some really funny ones, like some silly things, like what is your 48th favorite Pokemon?
Oh my goodness.
Like but we're gonna go simple. From Aqua Warrior, which Pokemon would you give as a gift to your younger sibling, nephew, niece, etc.?
Oh,
So like, I imagine they mean like if Pokemon's real. Like, I don't think they mean
like a pet,
like a plush. Yeah.
Well, am I like trying to set him up for success, or am I just like?
Well, it's your sibling. Do you hate your sibling, Joe?
Well, I don't have a sibling, so I like.
Do you have a niece or a nephew? Do you hate them?
Well, I don't have a niece or a nephew. I have a cousin. Okay, let's assume it's like my cousin.
I'll give little Johnny a Tyrannosaur.
Yeah. I'll give actually, on further thought, I think I'll give little Johnny a Rotom. That's surely safe for his household. You know?
Yeah.
No, I think honestly, okay, so I have two answers, right? So if it's a niece, I would give her a Spheal. Because Spheal's cute, right?
Okay.
And then Spheal becomes strong, a strong Walrein that would protect her and keep her safe.
Yeah.
Right? And then I feel like, okay, I know they say you don't give kids like knives or whatever, but like I'd probably give Poniard to like the nephew, to be honest, just because like Kingambit's like mad cool. You know, like
just giving a child a knife and say happy birthday, kid.
I mean, like, okay, as long as they make it, it'll be worth it, right? Like,
oh my god, Joe, can't take you anywhere, man. You're crazy. What do you guys think?
I mean, I feel like this is kind of I don't want to say it's a cop-out answer, but I feel like any of the starter Pokemon would be a good choice. I mean, they're given out to you anyways, and it kind of works out too if you're in the Pokemon universe, right? I'm like the main character, and then there's like my rival. There's the third Pokemon that goes to waste anyways. Might as well give it to my little sibling, and they can start their journey as well. Yeah, literally the hand-me-down. They can start their journey as well. Like that's a kind of a cop-out answer, but the other answer too is like any like the dog Pokemon, like a Lillipup. I feel like would be a great companion for my little brother or something like that.
Okay, so Gio, what do we think?
Okay, so first off, I want to say this question is from a Texas local, so shout out to you, Aqua Warrior.
Let's go. Hey, Aqua Warrior is clutching.
You can talk about it at your next local.
Yeah. Well, he's not from my area. We met in San Antonio.
There's
actually an insane amount of Texas players. There's an insane amount of Texas players that I never met before until I got to San Antonio, because like Texas is so big, you could be driving for like 9 hours and still be in the state. It's ridiculous. So like there's so many people from all over. Like I played against like 2 to 3 people and sat next to like 5 or 6 throughout the tournament that I'd never met before, and I hear them like talking with their opponent. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Texas, and I look at them like, what again? Like every round I'd be like talking to them after the round and be like, hey, you're from Texas? Yeah, like go ahead and meet these people too, because like they've been around for a while.
Yeah,
and like we just like exploded from there. But yeah, if I were to pick a Pokemon, it would definitely be Piplup or Empoleon, because my brother, when he got Platinum as his first game for his 8th birthday, he picked Piplup. And I was watching him, like, over his shoulder, I would watch him play for, like, hours on hours. And eventually, when we, like, as a family moved back to Texas, he just kind of stopped playing Pokemon to play other games, just because that's what the kids his age played, was just other stuff. And so I kind of inherited all the games, and that's how I got to like actually playing myself. And so every time I got a new game, I would always pick the water starter because he did. And so like that was kind of like a thing, just because he did it, I did it too, and it just kind of stuck. And so I would definitely choose between Piplup or Empoleon because of that.
Well, you give it to him as a Piplup, and then it becomes,
Yes.
exactly, it works.
Well, I mean, I think he appreciates Empoleon more, but
he'll like it
he'll
when
get
it's
the
eventually.
Empoleon eventually. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
We'll
when
get
You gotta work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's where I think that. So this is where I'm locking my answer, because I do think it's about not just the Pokemon you give, but the evolution as they develop with your younger sibling, right? So, like, you think about in the trading card game, you have the little girl who has the Ralts, and then she's like a young adult with Curlia, and then she's married and like old and knitting sweaters with the Gardevoir, right? Like,
I remember like that card. Very wholesome.
Yeah, it's very cute. So like you got to think how the Pokemon is going to grow up with them and evolve with them as your sibling is aging up. They are, and so my answer is Tyrone, because he starts as a little youngster. He's got little Johnny's got a little rambunctious Tyrone friend to hang out with and play games with in the house all day. And as he develops as a person, you have the 3 different branching ways that Tyrone can also evolve to Hitmonchan, Hitmontop, Hitmonlee, right? And depending on little Johnny's personality, now he develops as a person, will impact the evolution of his little Tyrone friend there. So I think that's like a fair, because Eevee would be the cop out under that scenario, right? 'Cause that does it. So if we're not going to say Eevee because it's basic, I think the Tyrone is a good backup.
Lame.
You know, they can play soccer out in the backyard together or something.
Yeah.
I think
I think I'll change my answer from Poniard, because maybe
it's a little dangerous to give a child.
A little dangerous, yeah.
Why can't boys like Spiel, Joe? Spiel's
they can. I mean, I like Spiel. Spiel's my favorite.
Spiel's so cool.
So give little
So
Johnny
round.
a Spiel.
No, but I can't repeat the answers.
You could if you have a younger sibling. And
What's stopping you?
What's stopping you? Everybody deserves a Spiel.
Well, sure. I do Torkoal. I did Torkoal for the nephew.
To set the house on fire?
Okay, so we go from dangerous sword, dangerous knives to burning the house down. I guess.
Okay, but like, which one's worse though? Because I feel like
Definitely
at least
the
like
Torkoal.
Definitely burning your house
It's
down.
got-
It's worse
stay in
than
the
a
chimney.
scissor existing.
keep them in the
24/7.
fireplace or something. You know, keep them in the fireplace or like
24/7.
outside.
I feel like if it's even in the fireplace, it'll just like the heat radiation will just be too much.
Hey, maybe
How
my
hot is
nephew lives in
Torkoal?
Arizona. Maybe my nephew lives in Arizona and they're just like outside. You know.
Maybe
Yeah, I mean-
Joe. Maybe that's a good way to think about it. I mean, there is also the thing about like Rapidash and Arcanines, right? Like the friendship fire context of Pokemon that like Mad Cargo, right?
Yeah,
Who,
like
if you're friends with them, they're not, even though it's so hot, they're not burning you because they love you. Like, you know,
it's like how literally are you taking their entries, right? Like, because I feel like, you know, if you take a lot of Pokemon entries, like literally, like there's actually not many Pokemon you can have, like
definitely not Ponyard,
next to a kid.
It's definitely not. Did you guys
like what if I like Drifloon and I was like, oh yeah, I want like this little kid to have a Drifloon, like you know what I mean? Like,
then you're a freak, Joe. If you like Drifloon, it's like you just hate your little brother. So for his birthday, you get him a Drifloon and see him fly off. That would be diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. All right, thank you all very much for joining us here on this week's episode of OHKO. As we mentioned, NAIC is next week. We're gonna try to get an episode out. We'll see how it is because I'm flying in early, so we want to do an NAIC predictions episode. I don't know if it's going to be on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. We will try to make that happen. But let's do our closing thoughts, socials, where everyone can find you. We'll start with Joe because he's got something to say.
Okay. I got one more question to ask. I'm sorry to you just did your whole outro thing.
That's okay.
Okay, if the U.S. wins, all right,
sure,
NAIC this year, what state do you think they're from?
What state? I mean,
yes,
New Jersey, baby. Not even a question.
I'm gonna just say New York, but that's all good. Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying Pennsylvania because it's gonna be me, right? So
Hey, I like it.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
it.
say, am I even a competitor if I don't say Texas?
yeah.
See, but
Okay,
that's why
okay.
we
My
use
question
our
was boring.
By
Yeah.
numbers,
You
I would
asked
say
it.
like hold
Yeah.
on, hold on. By
Thanks for-
numbers,
thanks for
I
ruining
would
the
say
outro, Joe. Appreciate
between
it.
like New York, New Jersey, between those two by numbers alone.
Yeah.
Like
or California.
likelihood, yeah, 'cause California too has a great number of players as well. But like, I selfishly have to just say like, if I don't believe in myself enough, then like, why am I going? You know?
Exactly.
That's why if Joe listens to the podcast next week, he would know when we do our predictions, it is you can't say yourself is the clause. So
If not me, then I would say between New York and New Jersey. I would probably give the edge to New Jersey for now, but that's just because New Jersey's been on a hot streak this season,
damn right.
and they have a number of
Ultra's
players.
not
who
going
have
this
been,
year.
like, that's true, but
Yeah, he's not going.
James
He's not
Evans will
going.
be there. It's my guy.
Yeah.
He's
He
got us
has
covered.
won a North American International before.
I was there. He beat Joe to do it. Anyway, let's end the
Hey!
I'm sorry I had to throw
What
it
are
out
you
there.
doing, Joe? What are you doing?
I'm sorry, man. Had to do it. All right. Thank you all so much for watching this crazy episode of the OHKO podcast. Also, I want to mention, we said at the end of the last episode, we did hit 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you all for that. That was a nice little milestone to wake up to when we were recording. Last thing before we close it out, where can we find everyone? What are your social medias? We'll start with you, Thaison.
Sure. So again, I'm Thaison Hughes, and you can find me on Twitter at Charisma Check with 2 A's in the middle.
Joe?
You know, x9academy.com for the best coaching in the business. You know,
That's my
what can
coach
I
right
say?
there.
And then Joe UX9 on literally everything. If you just put in JOE UX9, you'll probably find me literally anywhere. Yeah. YouTube,
Joe?
you know, Twitter, everything.
Twitter as Polar Bear with a Q instead of the O. It's a long story how that got there. Basically, the O was taken.
Okay.
Q or an X at the time was a good thing to put in for a vowel if it was taken, and it just stuck. So
Okay. You should have
that's
been
Polar
how-
Bear.
You should have been XXX Polar Bear XXX.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
hardcore Call of Duty
Yeah,
things
yeah.
back in the day. All right, yeah. So hopefully Sierra feels better. Hopefully she's drinking some ginger ale, eating some soup, and I know she's a little under the weather. So hopefully she'll feel better for next week and for NAIC. We'll see you for our prediction show next week. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do the things y'all do. Shout outs to Justin Tang. Happy belated 33rd birthday, and we will see you next week right here on OHKO.